Think danger in American cities is overblown? Think again. In 2025, some U.S. cities are seeing over 2,000 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, with families spending thousands on security systems just to sleep at night. Imagine living where you have a 1 in 50 chance of being robbed or assaulted, where gunshots echo more than car horns, and property crimes rack up millions in losses every week. Which cities are bleeding tax dollars and pushing families to flee? Could your zip code be one of them? Let's count down the 10 most dangerous cities to live in America in 2021, starting with a Pacific Northwest city that might shock you. Number 10, Tacoma, Washington. This port city often flies under the radar in Washington state, but lately it's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Known for its stunning waterfront views and proximity to Mount Rainier, you'd think Tacoma is all about cozy mountain vibes and sea breezes. But dig a little deeper and you'll find that this city has one of the highest crime rates in America. In 2025, according to the latest FBI data, Tacoma's crime rate is a jaw-dropping 8,655 incidents per 100,000 residents. That's over 3 times the national average. If Tacoma were a small town of just 100 people, almost 9 of them would experience some kind of crime in a year. What's really wild is how evenly spread the crime is between violent and property offenses. Residents face a 1 in 4 chance of being a victim of theft, burglary, or even carjacking. And violent crime? That's not just some far-off statistic. With a violent crime rate of 1,122 per 100,000, Tacoma ranks far above safer neighbors like Bellevue or Bellingham. That's nearly 4 times higher than the national average. Don't get me wrong, Tacoma isn't all doom and gloom. It's a working-class city with character, great art museums, and a loyal community fighting hard to make it better. But the sad truth is that in 2025, many locals are double-checking their locks, installing home security systems, and thinking twice before walking at night. With rising housing costs and economic stress post-pandemic, many blame inequality and lack of public investment for the surge. But if you think Tacoma's numbers are concerning, wait until you hear about a much smaller Colorado city where the crime rate per capita is even more alarming. Number 9, Pueblo, Colorado. This small city of around 111,000 people sits tucked away in southern Colorado, known for its steel industry roots in spicy green chili. But beneath the charm and sunshine lies a serious public safety issue that's only been getting worse. In 2025, Pueblo has a violent crime rate of 1,167 per 100,000 residents, placing it among the highest per capita in the nation. To put that in perspective, a resident in Pueblo is almost 4 times more likely to experience violent crime than someone living in Fort Collins or Denver. That's not just a statistic, it's a daily worry. Property crime is equally alarming. Residents here face a 1 in 13 chance of having their home broken into, their car stolen, or their belongings swiped. That means in a single street of 26 houses, at least 2 neighbors are likely victims each year. And it's not just a one-off thing. Repeat offenses are common, especially in neighborhoods where unemployment remains stubbornly high and opioid addiction continues to take its toll. Pueblo's struggles are closely tied to economic instability. The poverty rate hovers at around 20%, which is double the national average. And while the cost of living might seem affordable, median home prices are still under $260,000, that affordability is being overshadowed by public safety concerns. People are installing cameras, forming neighborhood watch groups, and even carrying pepper spray on daily walks. Schools and hospitals are doing their best, but many residents feel like local leadership just can't keep up with the problem. Yet Pueblo's challenges pale in comparison to what's happening in Louisiana, where a world-famous cultural destination is grappling with violence that threatens its very identity. New Orleans, Louisiana. Number 8, New Orleans, Louisiana. This city has always had 2 faces. On one hand, it's a vibrant, soulful place overflowing with jazz culture and world-class food. But on the flip side, it's been battling crime waves for decades, and 2025 has brought no relief. With a population just over 370,000, New Orleans sees a violent crime rate pushing 1,200 per 100,000 residents. That's roughly 4 times higher than the national average. Every resident has a 1 in 83 chance of being the victim of murder, assault, or armed robbery this year. What makes the situation especially difficult is how uneven the crime distribution is. Touristy areas like the French Quarter are often well patrolled, but many locals living in less visible neighborhoods face daily risks. Gun violence in particular remains a persistent problem. Homicide rates hover around 50 per 100,000, which is staggering when compared to cities like San Diego or Boston, where it's below 10. That difference isn't just statistics, it's hundreds of lives lost every year. Add in the property crime, and it's like a storm of stress. Car thefts and break-ins are so common that some residents say they leave their car windows down just to avoid shattered glass. The 1 in 4 chance of being a property crime victim isn't just a probability, it's a lifestyle reality. Despite a thriving tourism economy, New Orleans continues to face income inequality, systemic underinvestment in policing and public safety, and a justice system that's overloaded. But even with these challenges, locals aren't giving up. There's immense pride in the community, with grassroots organizations popping up to give teens better alternatives and improve neighborhood safety. However, in 2020, for many living outside the postcard views of Bourbon Street, personal safety is a real and constant concern. It's forcing some families to pack up and leave the city they love. But New Orleans isn't alone in this struggle. Another iconic American city on the Great Lakes has been fighting the same battle for years. Cleveland, Ohio. Number 7, Cleveland, Ohio. This city has heart. It's the home of rock and roll, championship dreams, and die-hard sports fans. But behind the skyline and Lake Erie breezes, Cleveland faces a serious challenge when it comes to crime. In 2020, with a population around 370,000, the city is experiencing a violent crime rate of nearly 1,400 per 100,000 people. That's nearly 5 times the national average. We're talking about neighborhoods where gunshots aren't surprising and police sirens are just background noise. Robberies, assaults, and homicides are persistent problems. The murder rate is especially alarming, hovering around 45 per 100,000. That's chilling when you compare it to places like Seattle, where it's closer to 6. Clevelanders often say you need eyes in the back of your head when walking downtown at night, and many locals avoid certain areas completely after dark. And it doesn't stop at violent crime. The property crime rate is over 4,500 per 100,000, meaning that even if you're lucky enough to avoid a confrontation, your car, porch packages, or bike might not be so fortunate. You've got about a 1 in 22 chance of being a victim of theft or burglary in a given year. That's like playing a rigged lottery you don't want to win. What's fueling the problem? Economic disparity plays a huge role. Cleveland's poverty rate is over 30% in some neighborhoods, and unemployment remains stubbornly high despite national recovery trends. The housing market may offer affordability, with median prices under $130,000, but safety concerns are causing many young families to move to nearby suburbs instead. Still, Clevelanders are tough. This city has survived steel mill shutdowns, snow apocalypses, and heartbreak seasons. But until crime rates come down, a lot of residents are living with one foot on the line and one hand on the security alarm. Yet Cleveland's struggles, as serious as they are, pale in comparison to what's happening in much smaller Louisiana communities where the violence is even more concentrated. Alexandria, Louisiana. Number 6, Alexandria, Louisiana. You may not think of this city when talking about danger, but in 2025 it's become one of the riskiest places to live in the U.S. Despite having a population of only 44,000, don't let the size fool you. This small central Louisiana city is experiencing violent crime rates nearing 1,600 per 100,000 residents, which puts it well above larger, more well-known crime hubs. That means roughly 1 in every 62 people experiences some kind of violent assault, robbery, or worse each year. The crime problems in Alexandria are no secret to locals. Shootings, drug-related offenses, and aggravated assaults have become disturbingly common. Even more shocking is the city's murder rate, which has reached as high as 60 per 100,000. That's about 12 times the national average for a city of its size. Those numbers hit hard, and every loss shakes the community. Property crime is just as rampant. The chance of becoming a victim of theft or burglary is about 1 in 18, which makes insurance companies raise premiums and residents raise fences. Many neighborhoods have turned into security strongholds, with cameras on every porch and dogs guarding every backyard. So what's causing this crisis? Economic hardship is a big factor. Alexandria has a poverty rate hovering near 30%, and jobs are limited outside the public sector. With fewer economic opportunities and high incarceration rates, the cycle of poverty and crime continues to churn. Schools and hospitals are trying to hold the line, but they're working with limited resources and aging infrastructure. Still, you'll find a lot of people who love Alexandria for its culture, its southern soul, and the tight-knit community trying to turn things around. But in Twiffies, safety remains a serious issue that continues to push people to rethink their future in this historic Louisiana city. Yet Alexandria's struggles are just one example of how crime affects communities regardless of size. Even America's largest metropolitan areas are wrestling with their own epidemics of violence. Detroit, Michigan. Number 5, Detroit, Michigan. This is a city that refuses to give up. It's got grit, soul, and a comeback story that's inspired millions. But despite its revival efforts, Detroit in 2025 is still battling some serious crime challenges. With a population of about 630,000, the city's violent crime rate sits at 1,550 per 100,000 residents, making it one of the highest in the country. That means about 1 in every 65 people will experience violent crime this year, whether it's robbery, assault, or even worse. While parts of downtown Detroit have seen investment, many neighborhoods remain plagued by poverty and systemic neglect. The murder rate is nearly 45 per 100,000, placing it well above the national average. That's a higher chance of being murdered in Detroit than in some conflict zones abroad. Some blocks look like urban ghost towns, rows of abandoned homes, overgrown lots, and boarded-up storefronts that speak to a history of economic collapse. Property crime is still a major concern. Residents face a 1 in 24 chance of becoming a victim of burglary, car theft, or vandalism. In fact, vehicle theft has surged with thousands of cars stolen annually, so much so that some insurance companies have started charging extra premiums just for being a Detroit resident. But Detroit isn't giving up. This city has some of the most passionate community leaders, artists, and entrepreneurs you'll find anywhere. It's the birthplace of Motown, for crying out loud. People are rebuilding block by block, turning empty lots into community gardens and installing neighborhood watch systems to protect one another. Still, despite all that heart and hustle, the crime rate remains a huge roadblock for many. For Detroiters, staying safe isn't just a goal, it's part of their daily routine. Yet Detroit's challenges mirror those faced by other historic American cities, including one on the East Coast where similar battles are being fought between revival and violence. Baltimore, Maryland. Number 4, Baltimore, Maryland. This is a city of contrasts, known for its harbor views, iconic crab cakes, and rich cultural history. It also grapples with one of the most persistent crime problems in the country. In 2020, with a population just under 580,000, Baltimore's violent crime rate is approximately 1,470 per 100,000 people. That's nearly 5 times the national average, meaning for every 68 residents, one could face a violent attack this year. But what truly alarms residents is the homicide rate. Baltimore sees around 330 murders a year, translating to a murder rate close to 57 per 100,000. That's higher than in many countries at war. It's especially shocking considering the city has seen consistent police reform and community-based initiatives. Still, gun violence continues to surge, especially in economically struggling neighborhoods where resources are scarce and trust in law enforcement is low. Property crime adds to the tension, with a 1 in 26 chance of experiencing theft, burglary, or vandalism. Residents often invest more in security than they do in entertainment. From reinforced doors to security cameras, staying safe isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Even local businesses are installing bulletproof windows to deter break-ins and robberies. Economic hardship plays a big part in this crisis. With a poverty rate of nearly 22% and an unemployment rate that often hovers above the national average, many communities feel stuck. Despite being home to major hospitals, universities, and Fortune 500 companies, the wealth gap in Baltimore is massive. and it's often reflected in the crime map. Still, the people of Baltimore are resilient. From grassroots youth mentorship programs to community cleanups and violence interruption projects, locals are fighting back with everything they have got. But in Tway, crime remains a massive shadow over Baltimore's potential, and for many it's a deciding factor in whether to stay or move away. Yet even Baltimore's struggles seem manageable compared to what's happening along the Mississippi River, where another historic city is facing some of the nation's most extreme violence. St. Louis, Missouri. Number 3, St. Louis, Missouri. This is a city with soul, blues music, toasted ravioli, and that iconic Gateway Arch. But beneath the charm lies a tough truth. St. Louis continues to rank as one of the most dangerous cities in America. In 2020, with a population of around 290,000, the city is experiencing a staggering violent crime rate of over 1,700 per 100,000 residents. That's nearly 6 times higher than the national average. Imagine sitting in Cardinals Stadium with 30,000 fans. Statistically, over 500 of them may be crime victims this year. That's not just a number, it's a gut punch. Homicides remain the biggest concern. St. Louis consistently sees over 200 murders annually, putting its murder rate around 70 per 100,000. That's one of the highest in the entire country. Gun violence is so common in certain neighborhoods that some families won't let their kids walk to school even during daylight hours. And property crime? That's another layer of stress. With a 1 in 20 chance of being hit by theft, burglary, or car break-ins, residents stay on alert 24/7. Insurance premiums are through the roof, and car owners often park with one eye open. So why is this happening? The issues are layered. Decades of economic inequality, underfunded schools, disinvestment in infrastructure, and a strained relationship between communities and law enforcement. Nearly 1 in 4 residents lives in poverty, and for many, crime is both a cause and effect of the struggle to survive. But St. Louisans are fighters, from local churches to youth centers and street outreach teams. People are pushing back against the violence with heart and hustle. There's still beauty and hope in this river city, but in Tway 5, safety remains one of the most urgent issues on everyone's mind. Yet while St. Louis battles its demons in the heartland, a very different kind of urban crisis is unfolding on the West Coast, where tech prosperity and street violence create a jarring contradiction. Oakland, California. Number 2, Oakland, California. This city has always had dynamic energy, art, activism, and culture pulse through its streets. But in 2020, it also carries the burden of being one of the most dangerous cities in the U.S., creating a stark contrast between Silicon Valley wealth just across the bay and street-level violence. With a population nearing 435,000, Oakland reports a violent crime rate of over 1,800 per 100,000 residents. That's 6 times the national average, and it's impacting every part of daily life. From downtown to East Oakland, residents are navigating a city where danger feels just around the corner. The murder rate has surged to nearly 55 per 100,000, which places Oakland among the top cities for homicides in America. But it's not just murders. The city is seeing record levels of armed robberies and aggravated assaults. In fact, some neighborhoods report a 1 in 50 chance of violent crime annually. That means if you live in a mid-sized apartment building, odds are someone you know has been directly affected. Property crimes add to the chaos. Carjackings, burglaries, and catalytic converter thefts have become so frequent that residents joke about not owning anything shiny. With a 1 in 17 chance of being a property crime victim, even basic errands can feel risky. Oakland's crime crisis is fueled by a complex mix of challenges: homelessness, income inequality, and a police force that's been struggling with staffing shortages and public trust issues. The city's poverty rate sits at around 16%, and while the tech economy booms across the bay, many Oakland neighborhoods are left behind. Yet the city refuses to fold. From murals painted on boarded-up walls to community patrols and local nonprofits offering youth programs, there's resilience in every block, but the hard reality remains. For many Oaklanders, 2025 is another year of balancing community pride with constant concern for personal safety. Still, even Oakland's troubling numbers don't prepare you for what's happening in the nation's most dangerous city, where violence has reached levels that shock even crime experts. Memphis, Tennessee. Number 1, Memphis, Tennessee. The home of Elvis, the birthplace of blues, and a city that lives and breathes music, soul food, and Southern pride. But in 2025, Memphis is also grappling with a massive crime epidemic that's earned it the title of the most dangerous city in the United States. With a population of about 630,000, Memphis is facing a jaw-dropping, violent crime rate of nearly 2,300 per 100,000 residents. That's 7 times higher than the national average. If you gathered 50 people in a room, odds are at least one of them has personally experienced a violent attack. That's how serious it's become. Murders alone tell a chilling story. Memphis consistently sees over 300 homicides a year, with a murder rate around 47 per 100,000, higher than any large city in America. Gun violence isn't isolated to one area either. It spills across neighborhoods from North Memphis to South Parkway, affecting people from every walk of life. Then there's property crime. With a 1 in 5 chance of being a victim of theft, vandalism, or burglary, everyday errands require a game plan. Locked steering wheels, home security systems, and neighborhood alerts have become just as common as grocery lists. Carjackings are especially rampant, forcing residents to take extreme precautions even in daylight. But what's behind the surge? Memphis faces deep-rooted poverty with nearly 25% of residents living below the poverty line, and a police department stretched thin by recruitment shortages and rising retirements. Community programs are trying to intervene, but it's a race against time. Despite the danger, Memphians are fiercely proud of their city. The culture, the grit, and the music never fade. People are fighting back, organizing cleanups, hosting youth mentorships, and pushing for real change. But in 2025, the numbers are undeniable. Memphis wears the crown not for music this time, but for a crisis that desperately needs a turnaround.